Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. To start on the second segment, I mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the Miami Dolphins. We're going to get into that in just a second, but before that, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments on any of these segments or anything we talk about on today's live show, to use the tip and donations link you see on your screen. GSMCpodcast.net is that link. By using that, I can see your question pop up in my chat box. I can react to it, take your guys' perspective on anything I say or what we're talking about, make it more engaging on the show, and it's also a massive help for not only this show, but all the other shows across the network as well. So if you would, please use the tip and donations link, gsmcpodcast.net, with any of your questions or comments. Like I mentioned before, Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the Miami Dolphins, an ongoing saga this offseason. The deal was officially announced last Friday. The Dolphins reportedly agreed to a one-year, $8 million deal with Odell Beckham Jr. Only $3 million of that is guaranteed, and the rest of the $5 million will be incentive-based and performance-based, I would imagine. This offer was supposedly less than what other teams offered Odell Beckham Jr. And really, it just came down to, at the end of the day, Odell just liking the fit better in Miami, thinking it was a better choice for him than all the other options he had. And this is really going back to mid-March, late March, not only when Odell was released from the Baltimore Ravens at the start of March, but he had an offer from Miami in the early part of the offseason, right around the NFL owners meeting, and they asked Mike McDaniels about it. He said basically that the offer was out there. It was presented to OBJ, and that these sort of things, the financial side of everything, takes time, and it really did take a lot of time because now we're after the draft, and the Dolphins and OBJ have finally agreed to this side. And it just felt like it was a better time to wait until after the draft to get a better idea of what this wide receiver room could look like for the Dolphins, because if they drafted a couple guys, maybe Odell might not have wanted to come here. It might not have seemed so appealing, but they really didn't address that side of the offense, and now Odell really slots in there as the number 3 wide receiver alongside Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and now with Tua, with those running backs they have in the backfield, Mostert coming off of a great season. Shane as well showed a lot of promise in his rookie year. This offense on the Miami Dolphins seems to be becoming a bit more complete. Mike McDaniels and their ownership is starting to mold it in a way that seems a bit more balanced, with some options outside of just Tyreek and Jaylen Waddle. And once the deal was announced, you saw Tyreek Hill going on social media, being excited about it. Jalen Ramsey as well, oddly enough, being on the Dolphins, reuniting with Odell. Last time they were on there, he made sure to tell everybody that, they went on to win the Super Bowl and they had that great season. A lot of excitement and a lot of positivity coming from the Dolphins after that. And just looking at Odell and sort of what he can bring to this offense now with the Dolphins. It's been 10 years since the New York Giants drafted him there in 2014, 12th pick, I want to say. And since then, he had that amazing start of his career, recorded at least 1,300 yards in his first 3 seasons of his career. Then it sort of broke down. The Giants weren't really elevating to a place that he wanted to be at that point in his career. So he was traded to the Cleveland Browns, where he again had another 1,000-yard season until, unfortunately, he tore his ACL with them in his second year there. And then from then on, you don't want to say he's been, just plagued with this label of being injury prone, but he has been really unlucky at times. I mentioned that initial ACL injury, then the Browns released him in November of 2021, and then he went on to sign with the Rams, went on to win the Super Bowl, but he unfortunately again tore his ACL in the Super Bowl, and he was eating in that Super Bowl. The first half, it was all Odell. He caught the first touchdown. It seemed like he was on his way to a career day, but then just to end the first half, his knee buckled a little bit, and you could see it from his reaction then on the sideline that, that ACL had gone again. So it was really sad to see. And then from that point on, he moved on from them, went on to the Baltimore Ravens. And from then, I think you're starting to see more of what Odell can sort of bring you. Because with the Ravens, I think it is a little bit misguided because the Ravens don't really have that dominant, unquestionable number one receiver. They have Rashad Bateman there, who's nice. He's a great receiver. Zay Flowers is coming in as a rookie. He's still a young player that you don't really know what kind of trajectory his career is going to take. With Odell being in there a bit more of a veteran, I mentioned the injuries. You don't want to toss him out there for endlessly amount of plays. So there does come some caution with him. Plus, obviously, that the Ravens just run the ball 70-80% of the time compared to what they do throwing the ball. And they already have other options like Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely stepped up a lot this year. Then with Zay Flowers coming more into his own and Odell again nursing another injury, it didn't really all just fall in line with Odell. I think the team fit wasn't really there. Sure, it was exciting at the start when you're talking about Odell, Lamar Jackson, that offensive line, how great it was in previous years. Just adding Odell, it seemed like it was going to be great. But I think that idea of him being that receiver that Lamar needed at that time, I just didn't think it fit. He dealt with injuries, so that really didn't paint Odell in a positive light because I still think Odell can contribute something to an offense, and that's why I thought Miami was the best fit for him because not only do you have one dominant receiver, Jaylen Waddle is very capable of being number one wide receiver on at least 50% of the NFL teams out there. So you have these two 1A, 1B guys can run anybody out of the stadium by just their pure natural speed that they have. A lot of teams just have to sit deep in coverage and make sure that they just don't get beat with the deep ball. And with that, you open more of the field. It's a massive reason why the run game was so efficient. You have less people in the box. So Raheem Mostert had a great year. Dave Achane also, like I mentioned, got more into his zone as the year went on. Now you bring in Odell Beckham Jr. with those deep, high safeties back there, a lot of cover 3, cover 4 maybe in the secondaries. You can have Odell Beckham Jr. work the middle of the field, work these intermediate routes, where I think that suits him better now because he's not the same receiver with the New York Giants, blazing speed, can just beat you one-on-one, can really run every route on the route tree. He's not that sort of guy anymore, and to have teams try and lean on him as their number one receiver, I think that would be a mistake. Now with the Dolphins, they have a great running game. They have an established passing game. Odell is in there more just so to be probably at best their number 3 wide receiver. And if he can do more, that's phenomenal for the Dolphins. They're getting a bargain for a 1-year deal if Odell can have any resemblance to what he showed probably with the Rams, at the very most with the Cleveland Browns, but I don't think that's likely. If he can show any sort of resemblance to what he did with the Rams there towards the end of the season, I think this deal is a bargain for the Dolphins. To have him be their number 3 wide receiver is not too much of a gamble. Plus, like I mentioned, it's only $3 million guaranteed, so you're not really risking too much financially because further down the line, I'm gonna talk about it at some point this week. The contract negotiations with Tua have begun, at least a little bit. They've got the ball rolling, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. The Dolphins have now let the NFL draft move on, so now they're reaching out to Tua and sort of getting that dialogue going a little bit with Tua. And according to Jeremy Fowler, it seems like they want to get this deal done. I think he even said that with all the other quarterback negotiations going on, he feels that this one is one of the more likely ones to happen. So to add to this offense and still keep Tua, adding Odell for a very cheap deal, not going to cost you much as a number 3 wide receiver, I think it makes the most sense to bring him in, sign with the Dolphins, and then if he plays great, that's great. If not, he can move on, or you could talk about a renegotiation or an extension further down the line. But again, I think this is a great move for Tyreek, for Jaylen Waddle as well, because as much as they can help Odell. Odell can help them a lot, working those middle parts of the field. And by doing so, you have Odell being a focal point somewhat there in for the Dolphins. And now Tyreek might get at least one of the two guys covering him a little bit off of them, cheating towards the middle. And that will make him even better because towards the end of last season, I think a lot of attention, especially in that Chiefs game. I'm pretty sure Jaylen Waddle didn't play or he was hindered by an injury. Then you have Tyreek Hill just getting all the attention, being a non-factor. That's when you see the struggles come up. Adding another guy like Odell, a veteran, knows how to get open, knows what it's like to play in the NFL. It makes the most sense to bring in a guy like this. They're all excited about having him there. Why wouldn't they be? And I really like the fit. I really like the Dolphins this year overall. I'm not going to get into predicting or anything or breaking them down right now. But I think they have a good shot of really improving from last year. They got more pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Another year with Mike McDaniels. If you keep Tua around, that's even better. You don't have this cloud hanging over your head. And you got better on the offensive side of the ball. I think they'll learn from last year with some of the deficiencies they had on defense and just their offense not being showing up really in some of the biggest moments. Tua especially. I think they'll get that all figured out. This is a good step in doing so. And overall, it gets 2 thumbs up for me for this deal for Odell Beckham Jr. I'm very excited to see how it plays out during the season. But anyway, moving on with another segment. We're actually going to go to a quick break right now. And on the other side of it, I mentioned before, we're going to talk more about the Dallas Cowboys and what they're saying about CeeDee Lamb not being at the voluntary workouts and his contract. Then, further down the line, Adam Peters talking about the trade offers he received for that number 2 overall pick. What was he offered and what were his thoughts around those offers from other teams? Stick around to find that out. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.